Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week, I talked to Greg Saganis of the band Pinched. What started out as a full band, Pinched has grown into more of a recording project for Greg, who strives to be the most creative with limitations. And that's something that comes out to play during his newest record, Fool, released last February. This interview was a long time coming for me, as I've enjoyed Greg's work as Pinched for a long time now. During our conversation, we talk about Greg's affinity for home recording, the anxiety around going to shows, and of course, his fantastic new record, Fool. It's Pinched right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. Greg, how's it going here today?
Good. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. You mentioned earlier off mic, you got to spend some time outside. It's been beautiful.
Yes.
Enjoying.
Yeah, I took my bike out and then I started my scooter too.
Nice.
It's pretty cool.
I saw the joke on Facebook. It's the Fool's Spring here in Minnesota.
Really?
It's the you get the fake spring before winter decides to hit one more time before you get real spring.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure. I like that. Okay.
yeah. Well, we always like to start things off getting people's, history with music, what makes them want to start to move from, being a fan and playing guitar or whatever instrument they wanted to, making it themselves. So, Greg, talk me through kind of when you started making music up through kind of when Pinched became a thing.
Sure. Well, I guess my parents were like super musical on like both sides of their family, and then within them themselves. Just grew up listening to like the Beatles, Rolling Stones, all like classic dad rock stuff.
Yeah.
With my pops. And I started playing like guitar and drums and piano like all at the same time when I was like 5.
Okay.
We had like instruments around the house I'd just tinker with, and then I got like little toy instruments and just kind of grew from there. I'm trying to think of how I started like making music. I know I got like a copy. It was called like Sessions for like HP desktop computer stuff. I had it, couldn't figure it out, plugged in like a bunch of different stuff, and then like finally figured it out. I could like make tracks. So I've been like doing stuff probably since I was like 10.
Gotcha.
At least like doing like building tracks and recording and stuff. And then I got Pro Tools, and then I just like went after it, and I've always loved the idea of like doing everything yourself. And like, I don't know chords. I don't know music theory. I don't know like engineering or anything. So just kind of just winging it, doing it all myself.
Were you playing in bands on top of, doing the home recording thing and experimenting?
Yeah, I did. I was in like a bunch of like the screamo hardcore bands in high school, playing all the cool like things. We were like 16, but it's just like, oh my god, dude, we're doing something.
Yeah.
And then I was in a band called In Irie, which was like really big to me. We were together for like 7 years. Went on tour for the first time with them, with another band, Harakiri, which is like still around, I'm pretty sure. But that was super cool, and that was pretty much my buddies that went to McNally Smith, the music college in St. Paul. And I didn't go there, but I like to like joke and say that like I went there because I was just totally that guy. Yeah, I was just there all the time. And then that was pretty cool. That really like opened the door. And then the bass player moved to Seattle, and it was just kind of like done with that. So I had all these things at home on Pro Tools, and just decided, well, I'm just going to do my own thing. And I had to name it something, so I just named it Pinched.
Gotcha. Was Pinched, because Pinched was a live band at some point, right?
Yeah. So like the first Pinched record was like in 2016, and it's on Bandcamp only. It's not on Spotify. And It's pretty rough, man. It's pretty rough. So I think that's why that one is not on
Yeah.
Spotify. But that record Life was like the first actual
Mm-hmm.
record I did. And I had some buddies help me out with that for a while, and we played shows for like a whole year together. Excuse me. And then it just kind of, we all just got really busy. We were all in like 3 other bands too.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of got hard, and totally okay with it though. You know, I mean, like I'm just doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with a buddy this week actually, and I realized my favorite part of doing this Pinch project deal
Mm-hmm.
is I turn it on when I want it, and I turn it off when I don't want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, when you talk about you, like, you know, you grew up playing in like hardcore and screamo bands, you know, Pinched is kind of almost the opposite realm of something just like that. So it allows you to have that creative outlet beyond, you know, something so visceral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, you know, you did this really nice write-up thing about Fool,
Mm-hmm.
and every time I read it, it just sounds like things that people used to describe my music when I was younger.
Okay.
Like with an Irie and like just like high school demos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just because I have a weird way of like recording. I've got this really old like rig, this really old system. And I think like gain is like the biggest thing to me. I think that's why every record I do kind of has this salt and peppery filter kind of thing over it.
Yeah.
It's just that gain, just kind of that hiss is everywhere. But at the same time, I don't know, the latest one I did, it's rather clean, which I'm pretty like proud of.
Gotcha. You talked to me when you first sent over the 3P last year, and then when you sent over Fool a couple months or a month ago now, you talked about how you really wanted it to sound like those high school demos you were working on or things you recorded in high school. What about that made you want to like emulate it and go back to? Because I've never really heard people, you know, talk about like
wanting to go
back.
Yeah, it's almost like the forbidden thing. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just more of I really got into this thing where it's like, I mean, I still do it too. I really like having like a premise of a song before I even like start it.
Okay.
So like, or like giving rules or something, like only 3 chords for the whole song.
Oh, okay.
How could you do that? You know? Because I think coming from playing all those like hardcore bands and like, I don't know, teaching myself stuff, and I just get really bummed at like the standard chord progression. I think like everybody does, and like everybody wants to try to get away from it.
Yeah.
So I try really hard to do that, and sometimes it's good. Sometimes I can like get some fun stuff, but like sometimes it's just a headache. And I feel like with Fool, it's still kind of weird chord progressions, but it's very almost like I don't know. My uncle heard it and he's like, "Oh, it's like adult contemporary," and I'm like, I don't think so, but
yeah,
it's very cool. It's very chill, and I think at the end of the day, it's just like very standard pop songs, and I think that's what I was really doing most when I was in high school.
Okay, so it's almost like you wanted to breaking away from, you know, the standards, but trying to, you know, force yourself to almost create in a certain ways.
Yeah,
you're going for?
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a song called "Skin" on the record, and just the whole beginning is just like so cheesy. I almost like found something on my computer that sounds just like it from like 2010, 2009. But at the end of the day, I was just like super comfortable with it. It feels right.
Yeah.
So I think that's always kind of the last thing that you just kind of ask yourself, like, well, if it feels right, it feels right. Sounds right, it sounds right.
Yeah.
So.
Do you ever plan on making Pinched a live project again? I know you played in the before times, as people like to call it. I know you played a couple of like solo shows. It was kind of like you and like a looper or something.
Yeah, I have like a really weird like push and pull for those kind of shows. some are really cool if it's like there's a couple other bands or like acts, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. You know, I don't know. I feel like I've been to so many shows where there's like someone like just playing violin and then like painting a picture in the background, like just very like avant-garde kind of
Yeah.
thing. That's when it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
But oh, dude, it's just like so hard. Like going up there, hey, here I am with my songs all
Yeah.
by myself with my guitar, and then right when I get off, like four bands just rip, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like I think it's like fun, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it's like, oh, I really wish I could have just like been here and watched the show
Yeah.
rather than like open this thing. But
Mm-hmm.
it's always fun. It's just
Okay.
for fun, anyways. So
Yeah. And you play? Do you play in another band on top of this stuff? Is that Gather Data
yeah, Gather Data, Pray for
Death?
Death, and
Yep.
then Jay, the drummer,
Mm-hmm.
played and pinched with me,
Yeah.
and then it was a big circle at one time. It was so Jay and I were in Gather Data, and then my roommate Kyle, who played used to play in Cave Light and plays in Lud Gang.
Okay.
Sorry, they just changed their name. I'm just like, what's their new name? And he's in Lud Gang, and then Emmy Crofta, who's on the record,
Mm.
was in Bob Rob. Oh, I can't even
Bob
say.
Ross
I
Mob
could never
Boss.
say it, man.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
mouthful.
Yeah, so it was just like we were all doing all these things, so
Mm-hmm.
that's like kind of what it was. But still, I think it'd be pretty cool to do stuff again. I've told like all my friends lately that just like done with shows, especially
Mm-hmm.
with COVID. I was kind of like, oh, thank you. I just it's not that I don't like shows.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it's not really an anxiety thing, but it was just more of like I love like being able to like make something really nice and then just put it out there and if
Okay.
someone listens to it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like go into the show and it's just very like,
Yeah.
did people like this?
Mm.
And
So you're talking more about like the performing side of the show, not actually going to the show, then,
um,
or are you more of like
well,
a mix of both? Because I get it. I haven't played, I should say, a ton of shows. I played maybe two in my lifetime here, but like going there, it's almost like the social aspect of it's wonderful, but like it's also like you have to go there and you're there, and then you just be nicer to just be somewhere else
yeah,
sometimes.
I don't know. I feel like for sure it goes into like an anxiety
Mm,
thing and I think I mean especially like COVID, like following a bunch of, just I mean like you open up Instagram and there's like all these like beautiful posts of like hand drawn or like
mm,
digital printed like 7 ways to say hello to strangers and being nice and like 7 ways to this and this and that and it's just like all this like positive stuff
mm,
when you read into that, I feel like I just like find answers for like, oh, that's why every time I'd go to a show, like I wouldn't have fun until like the very end because like the
mm,
first hour, I'm just like, oh man, like everybody's here. Like,
mm,
do I know anybody? And you just get in this like mindset of like almost like real life social media. I don't
mm.
know. So it gets in my head so much that I'm just like, man, I wish I could just be watching the show instead of playing it, and or I wish I could just like enjoy the show from outside,
Yeah.
smoking a cigarette,
Yeah.
being comfortable. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But then it just like totally rips on you again because then you sit there and you're like, oh man, but I really feel bad.
yeah.
Like I feel bad. Like one of my friends are like, hey man, I was playing and you weren't in there. But then it's like, how do you address that? Like, well, hey man, I've got like weird anxiety.
Mm,
I don't like being in there. So it's always goofy, but
yeah. Gotcha. And you record a lot of your stuff with just like a handful of microphones too, like moving into your kind of again the setup. Is that like a specific limitation you set on yourself?
I wish I could say that, but it's really more of like my interface has two mics and that's it, man. Like there's two inputs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like recently new. I used to do like one mic, one input,
Yeah.
and like that was it. And I had to do everything separate. But now that I got two, it's not that much more, but it's a
Mm.
lot easier, you know.
Because didn't you do like the 3P drums each piece? Is that
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah. I used to. I think everything I've like recorded besides this full record.
Mm.
That one's live. Everything else I did like super George Martin Beatle
Yeah.
esque kind of thing. Just start with kick, then snare, and then you just kind of air drum as
Mm.
you go. It's kind of cool. It's a total pain in the ass, but
I
it's
can
like,
imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's super rewarding.
Yeah, with the fact that you did like a full record, is that why you went into Casino Time to record the drums for Fool that way, or was there some other
Um,
reasons for that one?
no, I think it was more of every other time I've done like separate drums. I've
Mm.
done it like I was living at my parents',
Oh, okay.
so I could just like do whatever. And then now I've got like neighbor underneath me, thin walls, so I'm
Yeah.
just like I can't play in the house. Plus, it was done by my buddy Connor, who plays in Creepy Monday,
Okay. Yep.
and he was super cool. Really helped me out with it because I haven't done something like that, like studio, like actually been in a studio since like I don't know McNally, and
Okay.
those were just kind of like fancy kid studios,
Mm.
anyways. So it was really cool to go in there and do it. I learned a lot, man. I went in there and I was just like, oh, dude, I'm just gonna play drums real quick.
Mm.
And then it was just like, ooh, boy, I was not ready for
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, moving into the record Fool, talk to me about like the story that record tells, because when you sent it over to me, the one thing you kind of the caveat you gave me before I went into reviewing it was kind of that back and forth you have in the lyrics was more between you and yourself than like you and another person. So kind of talk to me about that
Yeah.
storyline and like what was going on while writing that record.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I've always done it written like
Mm-hmm.
that, even like in an irie and everything. It's just like third person, I guess. I mean, I guess that's how I would explain it. Is like as if um, your conscious was talking to
Mm-hmm.
the inner you. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess I don't know. That's kind of the same guy, I guess. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, so just like kind of like metaphors, or I don't know, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like helping yourself out with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know. I feel like I really thought I was like, oh, you know what? Because I was gonna name the record after like one of the songs, just try to like really push like a standard like pop deal of like, hey, here's my record, blah blah blah. Listen to the song, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, but then I was like, oh, how could I like hide something in there where someone would understand? And I'm sure people have picked it up, but I feel like maybe it hasn't really hit people. But like fool is supposed to be like the line in like one of the last songs, Alleyway.
Mm-hmm.
um it says fool, and I feel like I really wanted to name it something like that because I feel like I don't know, if you like ask any of my friends, I always have like goofy stories that happen to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like in the wrong place at the right time, and
Mm-hmm.
just like shitty shit happens to me, and it's just like I'm always the fool.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really good. I feel like rather than like writing about like experiences or like places I've been or things like that, like I've done in the past,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this one was just like I'm just gonna like write about myself, like hoping I'd like learn about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did. I think I did.
What kind of stuff do you think you learned about yourself through writing this record?
I think a lot of it is kind of like what I talked about before, just like going to shows
Mm-hmm.
and just that like standard feeling of like, I grew up in the suburbs,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just moved down here a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But I've always been down here playing shows and like hanging with buddies and stuff. So it's like nothing feels foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like anxiety based. I just came down and it was just like, oh man, like how do you try to fit in without sticking out? How do
Mm.
you know, because it's just like when I play a show, it's like absolutely nothing. I could play a show in front of 3 people. I could play a show in front of like 500 people. It's like no big deal to me.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, like when I'm not on stage, that's when I'm just like, oh man, I just like, I just want to be at home
Yeah.
or like outside, you know?
Yeah. You don't have like the focus of performing to kind of shield you from what's actually in front of you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I always just imagine just like, you know, um, I don't know though. I guess I'm kind of like double screwed because like I'm singing too. So like I
Mm.
guess people would be staring at me the most. But I guess in my head I've always just been like, oh, they're staring at the drums. Yeah, drums
Yeah.
are so cool. You know, everybody's always staring at drums.
Yeah. One of the things that Fool struck me is you have 3 interlude sections on the record as well. What was were you trying to like break up the record in acts, or what were like the point of including those?
Um, I don't know. I really the first time I ever did that was the Life record. It's got
Mm.
like 3 transitions on it, but I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of like my new deal. I'll probably do that for like
Mm-hmm.
every record because um, man, I used to listen to like Minus the Bear
Okay.
and like their first couple of records. They always just had these like interludes. They just come in like 50 seconds, fade in, fade out, and then when you'd see them live, it's just like the bass player is just like drinking his beer and hitting play on a you know like an
Yeah.
iPod shuffle, and it's going through the house speakers and stuff. So it's just like I don't know. And then I think I kind of use it as a little bit of a crutch,
Mm.
like kind of like just like a bit of a cheat just to get a full length record, like you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think I always intend to do like instrumentals. I think it's
Mm.
just like those were 3 songs that I just never really felt comfortable with like the lyrics for
Mm.
some of them, or some of them were just like little jams that I decided to kind of like uh, cut up, edit, and like slap together.
Okay.
But all the releases I've done, I've kind of had the same thing where like the first song just kind of goes smack into the second song, and I tried to do that on this one. It didn't really come out the way I wanted to, but
What?
um,
Yeah. What about it didn't quite work for the way you imagined it?
um, I always like I always like when a song is like you could play a chord or something that
Mm.
goes like into it, where you can like watch the CD player or something, and then it just goes like from 1 to 2.
Yeah.
But this one's like really quick. It like changed. The first song ends with like this harmonica and the synth
Mm-hmm.
just like blaring, and then it cuts, and then there's like literally a millisecond pause before the janky guitar
Yeah.
for blue
Mm-hmm.
comes on. And that's how I say it. Everybody's like, "Oh, that song Blue," and I'm like, "No, it's bleh."
Yeah.
Bleh. But I don't know. There's just like a 2-second pause, and I just like beat myself up.
Mm.
I'm like, "Oh man,
Yeah.
should have just went like, you
Mm-hmm.
know." But whatever.
Yeah, whatever the little things. You talked about how much you really wanted this record to be consumed as a full, like a record, instead of like, just, you can cut parts out of it and, throw in a playlist or whatever if you have your favorite tunes of the week or whatever. you
Yeah,
have.
yeah. I'm like, dude, I live under a rock. I swear.
Mm.
I listen to like 7 bands maybe total,
Mhm.
and like majority of them are like extinct. They don't even play anymore, or they're like from 2005. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I still just really. I mean, I skip around a lot. Everybody
Yeah.
skips around and stuff, but I really like to like just listen to a record
Mhm.
like all the way through, or just like in order at least. If you're gonna skip, skip in order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know, and I feel like it's almost like a tactic too, to like try to like draw someone to like, hey, just like keep listening, because
Mhm.
they flow in. You don't have to have like a pause, or like I don't know. But at the same time, you need pauses. You need like the listener to have like a moment to like take in what they just heard.
Yeah.
So there's like a fine line. So it's really hard to do.
Yeah, and especially like the music you produce can be very dense for how like it's almost sounds like it's like a not an oxymoron, but like because like it's Pinched is always like very low key, very personal sounding, with like the guitar is like very singer songwritery, kind of just like it's you and the listener. When I mean the way I always listen to Pinched, it always feels like it's you and the listener. However, the way you produce a lot of those tracks, it's incredibly dense with everything that's going on without being overwhelming.
Well, thank you. Yeah. It's hard to do because like right when I'm like, oh man, I just built this perfect wall of like 20 different things going on. There's like 6 different guitars. There's like a piano, a bells, all these things. And then I'll show it to a buddy or something. And they're like, dude, that's really cool, but that's just really loud. And like this and that needs to come down, man. You got to bring this down. And they're like talking in like rocket science. They're like, you got to bring these cymbals to like 500 negative CBD, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
You got to cut it at like 4,000 hertz. So it like,
yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. So I think that's like my roughest spot is drums. I just can't get drums to sound like drums. So I think that's another reason. I probably went to my buddy and was just like, help.
Yeah. And the fact that you've mentioned like, you know, doing the George Martin. I was gonna say George Michael for some reason. George Martin, like the producer of the Beatles. You know, their later records specifically. I'm not a big Beatles head because I don't listen to a ton, but like, you know, that stuff was pretty dense for being, you know, pop music still.
Exactly. Yeah. And then just like, I've always been, I'm not like big into the Beach Boys, but like I'm in love with, Pet Sounds, like everybody in the world is. And like my ultimate dream, I hope I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't like be a dick about it or anything. Cause like Brian Wilson, I guess, was pretty snappy, but like he just got all these people in a room and just like had them play his record out of his head. And like, I feel like I'd really like to do that. I just like really want to like compose. You know, cause like I could like lay down guitar tracks all day with like layers and harmonies and stuff. But then once I start putting in like, I've got a glockenspiel, I've got a melodica, bunch of different keyboards, like this little harp thing. I don't know. I think just like instruments with like hands on. Like nothing I do is like DI. Nothing I do is MIDI. Like everything I'm playing with my hands with a microphone into the computer. You know what I mean? So I think that's what kind of like gives the character, but it also gives the density, you know, because that's like 15 instruments and like 10 of them are all in the same pitch range. You know, so it gets really squeaky on the ears a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you plan to add instruments as you go, or is it like you just, you know, you're working on a track and you're layering things, you're like, oh man, that glockenspiel would be kind of cool here, or like you'll throw the melodica on, or do you, when kind of composing in your head for your own music, do you know, have those instruments in mind while working on them?
A little bit of both, I guess. That's kind of a good question, because I don't know, I'll be sitting on the couch like just like playing guitar acoustic or something, just writing or just like noodling around, and then like I'll catch a riff and I'm just like, oh, bells on top of this, don't even know what they're gonna do, but just like you just kind of like know sometimes like, oh, it needs some weird thing. But I think most of it is like once I get the bones down for a whole song, like some guitar, some bass, some drums, that, well, I don't know, that, and or I guess like when it's like, okay, I think this song is actually done, I think that's when I go back and like fuck with it the most, when I probably shouldn't, you know? And just like, oh, what about like a 6-piece violin, cello, orchestra thing that I write on like my GarageBand app that I pump into Pro Tools, you know? And then after doing that, it's just like, nope, too much is going on and gotta cut it out.
Yeah. Well, it's easy, especially when you're like you just like you're always sitting in the box working on stuff over and over again. You just like, well, I can throw this in here and I can throw this in here. You know, it's fun. And then sometimes you play it back and go, ooh, maybe not.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like, I mean, I think that's why I think everybody follows this dude, that band meme 666 guy on Instagram. Oh, dude, they're so good because, yeah, I mean, the best ones I see are just like the classic little dude that's just like, yeah, I just wrote this crazy ass song. It's super good. It's like the best thing ever. My band's gonna be insanely famous. Blah blah. I'm gonna go to bed tonight and tell everybody in the morning. And then, like when he wakes up and listens to it, you're just like, "Whoa, what was I thinking, man?
Yeah.
This is not good." I was just, it just happens. But I don't know. And I think I kind of took that with Fool too. I usually take like 4 months to work on a project.
Okay.
And then I'm like, I don't like overstretching anything. But like I did this record for like almost a year.
Oh wow.
Which I still think is like way too long.
Yeah.
So
how long after the self-titled 3P did you start Fool, or did Fool and the 3P start around the same time?
No, it was totally, I started Fool kind of like as an accident. Like
Okay.
I was like super ready to just like take a break from music and like not do anything for a while. And then I just started kind of like demoing stuff just for fun. I think mainly too, it's like I usually don't demo, but for this one I demoed just because I got a new car and I was just like, man, I just want to like drive around and listen to stuff. And I was just like getting bored of like listening to the same stuff. And like, I just, I couldn't find anything on Spotify like that like sounded good or like catch my eye or anything. So it's just like, okay, well, I'll just like make my riffs on my guitar into like full songs and just drive around, smoke weed, and like listen to them, And then eventually I was like, oh shit, I got a whole record. All right, well,
nice. Were the songs you demoed essentially what made it onto Fool, or were there some cuts here or there?
Yeah, I mean there were a couple cuts. One of the cuts is actually just one of the instrumentals. I just like slowed down the whole session. And so like the whole session is just like really laggy and slow. Okay. And then I just put a bunch of like TV recordings and radio recordings and stuff on top of it. And it turned out pretty cool.
Gotcha. Do you do a lot of since you talked about like the samples there, do you do a lot of like field recordings for Pinch stuff? Because like the last song I was going to ask about in a little bit, Bed has some some stuff like kind of field recording-esque. And then you talk about the interlude, you threw a bunch of stuff on top of.
Yeah, that really kind of started with Life, that record Life. From the very first song. I really like that record, man. I think that's like my favorite thing, even more than Fool, that I just did. Just because it's got like these bookends on both ends of the record. When you start the record, I was like really worried about this too, because I figured, oh shit, everybody's gonna think it's like a live record. But like you hit play and it starts with like people clapping. It almost sounds like you're at like a concert and a band just stopped playing and like everybody's clapping right before the house music turns on. And like you can hear people talking, having conversations. There are drinks clashing in the background from like the bartender and stuff. And I just like at a show one night was just like getting recordings of just like ambient people talking, crowd, we can't hear anything. And then like the record just starts and it's kind of cool. And then at the very end of that record, it ends on a transition interlude song. And it's just a bunch of people like on a patio at 331, drinking, smoking, hanging out. And this like pretty guitar fades in and then fades out. And then there's like city buses and all this stuff. It's really, really cool. And I think that's what kind of sparked my interest on doing stuff like that. Okay. And then I did it on Fool as well. Yeah.
So the final track in Fool, Bed, the thing that like struck me about that song is that like little end like section, because you think the song's over, the the really like subtle acoustic guitar and fades to just the crickets and what I appear to be night sounds, and you kind of have almost not quite menacing, but you have that like low piano coming back in, and it almost kind of has this uneasy kind of turnaround before it kind of ends kind of very pretty again.
Well, yeah, that's funny you brought that up. I like I said, I live under a rock. I don't know anything. My buddy's like I've never seen Twin Peaks. I don't know much about it. I know like the intro, what it sounds like, and that's like kind of cool. I've like heard it twice. My buddy's like, dude, it's very Twin Peaky at the end there. Like those like super low seventh chords, and that's just like a section of Alleyway, the song before it. And that's all it is.
Gotcha. It's funny you mentioned Twin Peaks, because there was a line I cut from the write-up I did where I was trying to reference Twin Peaks but couldn't quite make the connection, because I've Wes, who also does Ear Coffee, loves that show, and I've watched a handful of episodes, but it's not something I can always jump into. So like, but I know it enough, and so it's funny that you mentioned Twin Peaks, because I was trying to make a connection to that show, and I was like, I can't quite get there. So I was like,
oh man, well, I'm sorry, I wasn't gonna pick that up.
No, you're good. But
I don't even know where to watch it, man. I'm broke. I don't have anything. I got like Netflix. That's it. Everybody's got Hulu.
I think it's still on Netflix. I'm not sure.
Okay, but maybe I'll check it out.
If you got some time for some weird kind of sci-fi influenced David Lynch movies or TV, but and I think I did that on. I don't think I did it on the 3P. No.
No. I think I did do it on the 3P. Yeah, because I think you wrote about it too. That it sounds like a broken tape player.
Oh yeah,
It's like a riff that comes in. I think that's another one of my weird little mantra things. I'm just gonna probably do that on every record.
It's your thing. It makes pinch almost, or
I don't know. I feel like growing up, I felt like there was like a lot of cool records like that. They either had a secret song, like 2 minutes after the last song. So like you look at the last song, like you flip the CD over because that you'd have a CD, and then like track 13 would be like 11 minutes long or like 20 minutes long, and you're like, what the hell? So I don't know. I think it's just kind of like a cool little like secret. If you know, but if you're someone who just like, oh, that was the end of the song, then you wouldn't know.
Gotcha.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, totally. We kind of talked about this earlier, where you talked about how you have, while it is mainly a solo kind of recording project, you've worked with previous band members on recording. On this one, M and Jay both did work on it. And I know M worked on the 3P, and some other people who you like, either played in the band or roommates.
Yeah, played. Actually, the 3P had. Sorry, Jay. Jay wasn't on the 3P, but Emmy and Kyle was. So every recording has, I guess, everyone who was in Pinched at one point, but not all together.
What about coming back to working with those people that like, makes you want to come back to like include them? Because, that's not like they're major contributors across, but, they have their little parts here and there.
Yeah. That was the thing. We never really got to like track anything we wrote together.
Okay.
But we did write some cool like stuff. We had a really good like energy. Like the four of us really brought a very unique, special thing individually.
Gotcha.
Like I said, like these dudes know like music theory. They know all these chords. They're a little older than me, a little more sophisticated, and I'm just like this little stony dude who doesn't know the chords, and I'm like, it's this one, it's this here with my middle fingers, it's just so embarrassing, man. I feel like 2 feet tall, but but it's fun. And then we get together and it's just like perfect. And I think what was really cool too was, just the difference between the record and then us playing live. You know, I wrote that Life record, it was just me on the whole record. And then that's pretty much the majority of the material we played live together.
Gotcha.
And it was just so much better than the record. All four of us playing live, you know, because it was punchier. It was more like faster tempo, and it just felt right. It wasn't so, you know, when I do recordings by myself, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they're like fun little things to like listen to, but like versus like if like someone who really knows how to mix music like looked at my sessions or like heard my songs, I feel like, you know, for me, like something is like always too far away. You know what I mean? Like you listen to like something that just came out off like a label on Spotify and everything's just like perfect. And then you listen to my stuff and it's like the hi-hat feels like it's like right in your face, yet the snare drum is like 2 football fields away.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. So just hearing those songs played live with everybody just playing together, it was really cool.
So did the full band ever write together, or was always you doing everything and then taking the music to them?
It was mainly more, like I said, we really didn't get a lot of chance to write, and we didn't really even practice a lot. I mean, that's I mean, I don't want to like be like cocky or toot our horn, but like it was really cool just because everybody was already, you know, in other bands and doing stuff. So it was like, hey, we have a show in 2 days. Should we practice now or should we just play it? Well, let's just run through a couple songs since we have the time here together. And then we'll just like listen to the CD at home and then just get it. And like, man, I was like, I'd never played in a band before that every single show, even if I screwed up, even if I didn't like my voice, even if I did something embarrassing, tripped or something stupid, you know, I just like didn't care because it just like everything was just perfect. It was really good. But we just, you know, everybody got busy and they just couldn't do it anymore. But I think COVID probably will bring us back together, just in the sense of like, hey, we almost like could never do this ever again. So like, why not just do it? Make time to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. That'd be cool to see. I'd be excited to see Pinched live in its full glory.
That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Because I don't know, man. Maybe I should play shows again. Because I was really set on just like, nope, just never gonna play a show again. I'll just go to them and I'll just release stuff. But I guess after a while, if enough people listen, they'd be like, well, hey, I wanna experience this live. So I'd probably do it.
Yeah. Well, I got just a few more questions here tonight.
Yeah, man.
So what do you have anything coming up for? I mean, obviously, Pinched is something you just kind of you do as you see fit. Do you have any plans to release any more music soon, or do you have anything coming up for the project people should be on the horizon for?
I don't know. I'm gonna start recording another record probably by the end of this month.
Okay.
To start compiling stuff up. But I don't know, because I really wanted to do a video at some point, but you know, COVID, that's just really hard trying to find people, getting everybody together. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna do stuff at home, release it online. I really want to do a live stream, but I don't know too much about it. I don't know how I would do it. Without it just being like grainy cell phone, me in my living room, you know. But it'd still be fun.
Yeah. And then finally, where can people connect with you online?
Instagram is like my main hub. I had a Facebook for Pinched, but it was tagged into my personal, and of course, like everyone else, I just like deleted my Facebook. So now like Pinched is gone forever. But if you go to Pinched _ MPLS at Instagram, you can see all my silly photos and listen to my music.
Awesome. Well, Greg, thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with me here this evening.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. It was really nice.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @EarCoffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.